The introductory stage directions for Act 1, Scene 1 read, a battlefield, thunder and lightning, enter 3 witches. This is a striking opening. Not only are we on a battlefield, communicating that the play is to be set against a backdrop of violence, but the weather is also stormy, suggesting that this instability in the earthly realm is also reflected in an instability in the heavenly realm. Add to this the appearance of the 3 witches, supernatural beings which would have given the contemporary audience a frisson or pleasant shiver of fear. And Shakespeare successfully manages to set a dark and dramatic mood before any of the characters have even opened their mouths. The audience's curiosity is further aroused by the way in which Shakespeare starts the play in medias res, which is a Latin term for in the middle of the action. The first witch asks her companions, "When shall we 3 meet again?" We've clearly come in at the end of their conversation and have been deliberately excluded from seeing and hearing what they have so obviously been plotting, apart from the fact that it involves someone called Macbeth, as they make future arrangements for when and where they shall next come together and respond to the call from their familiars or attendant spirits, Grey Malkin, a grey cat, and Paddock, a toad, to depart. The fact that the 3 options for their next meeting, in thunder, lightning, or in rain, are exclusively to do with bad weather, however, is a strong indication that they are up to no good. The second witch answers, "When the hurly-burly's done, when the battle's lost and won," with the third echoing, "That will be ere the set of sun." There are a few interesting observations to make here. First, that Shakespeare introduces very early on what is to be a major theme in the play, that of winning and losing, and that these are 2 sides of the same coin. Not only in that for there to be a winner, there also has to be a loser, but also in that as soon as Macbeth wins the crown, he is effectively fighting a losing battle. Second, that Shakespeare, who usually writes in blank verse, i.e. with a base meter of iambic pentameter, di-dum, 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 but with no fixed rhyme scheme, writes the witches' dialogue in headless iambic tetrameter. In other words, iambic tetrameter, di-dum, 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 but with the first unstressed syllable missing, so that the meter effectively becomes trochaic, dum, di-dum, 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 but with stressed syllables at both the beginning and the end of the line. This, however, is also only loosely adhered to with irregular line lengths, where some speeches take the form of rhyming couplets, while others read as prose. Shakespeare has designed this to be unsettling and seems to be signalling to the audience that these witches are outside of normal society and of the rules that exist in it to govern communication. Do, however, also note how the rhymes at the ends of the first 3 speeches share consonants, and that they all end with an n sound, to indicate how in tune the witches are with one another, if not with the world of men and women. And finally, note Shakespeare's introduction of the number 3. There are 3 witches, to which the first witch explicitly refers in her first speech. She gives her companions 3 options for the conditions under which they shall next meet. And the third witch completes the second witch's rhyming couplet to create a rhyming tercet. Look out for other patterns of 3 that will continue to emerge as the play progresses. Shakespeare also tells us right from the start that this is to be a play about deceit and betrayal. The witches introduce the idea in this very first scene that things will not be as they seem, as they proclaim in unison, "Fair is foul and foul is fair." And this sets the tone for the rest of the play. What will appear to be fair on the surface, i.e. Macbeth's prophecies of ennoblement, and his wife's sham obsequiousness and protestations of loyalty to their king's face, will actually be foul, as the pair are simultaneously plotting his murder and will eventually themselves end up dead. And what is foul, i.e. the murder of Duncan, Lady Macbeth's madness and suicide, and Macbeth's descent into depravity, ending with his death at the hands of Macduff, is actually fair if you are looking at it from the perspective of the witches, who celebrate an inversion of the natural order of things. Note the use of alliteration here. The repetition of the initial f sounds irrevocably connects the two concepts together in our minds. Act 1, Scene 2 switches the action from the battlefield to the king's headquarters. King Duncan, his son Malcolm, Donalbain, Lennox, and a number of attendants enter from one side of the stage to meet a bleeding captain entering from the other. Note how the characters now, in contrast to the witches, speak in blank verse. Malcolm introduces the captain as the sergeant who, like a good and hardy soldier, fought gainst my captivity, and asks him to share news of the battle with the king. We learn that the merciless MacDonald, a rebel who had betrayed the Scottish King Duncan and aligned himself with the Norwegian invader King Svino, from the western isles of Kerns and Gallowglasses, is supplied. In other words, he had bolstered his army with mercenaries from Ireland and the Hebrides, and it was looking as though he had the upper hand, until the arrival of brave Macbeth, well he deserves that name, who, disdaining fortune with his brandished steel, which smoked with bloody execution, like valour's minion carved out his passage till he faced the slave, which ne'er shook hand, nor bade farewell to him till he unseamed him from the nave to the chaps, and fixed his head upon our battlements. The captain uses the epithet brave here, as well as the metaphor valour's minion, a follower of personified courage, to describe Macbeth. Early on, Macbeth is characterised as a soldier loyal to his king, who on the battlefield had taken no notice of the fact that the odds appeared to be stacked against him, and had carried on regardless, mowing down any invaders standing in his way, with a sword steaming from all the blood dripping from it, until, face to face with MacDonald, he ripped him open from his navel to his jaws before fixing his head onto the battlements. Shakespeare's use of very graphic language to describe MacDonald's slaughter serves to vividly evoke the extreme violence of the time in which the play is set, not to mention the extreme violence of which Macbeth himself is capable. Note also Duncan's response to the captain. "O valiant cousin, worthy gentleman," not only revealing that he also holds Macbeth and his bravery in high esteem, but also that the two men are, in fact, related. Macbeth's defeat of MacDonald was not, however, the end of the battle, as the Norwegian lord, spotting an advantage, started a fresh assault, with furbished arms and new supplies of men. Asked if this dismayed not our captains, Macbeth and Banquo, the captain definitively dismisses this with the simile, yes, as sparrows, eagles, or the hare, the lion. i.e., they were scared in the same way that an eagle is scared of a sparrow, or a lion is scared of a hare. In other words, not at all. Note the way in which this animal imagery not only suggests Macbeth and Banquo's nobility, but also that their superiority is innate and natural, even if it is predatory. If anything, he asserts, they seem to be even more energised as they were as cannons overcharged with double cracks, so they doubly redoubled strokes upon the foe. This simile now likens the pair of them to powerful weapons, loaded with twice as much ammunition as usual. Note the use of polyptoton here, with repetition of double, doubly and redoubled to emphasise this increased strength. It's also worth mentioning how Shakespeare introduces the character of Banquo at the same time here. Equally valiant on the battlefield, but less celebrated than Macbeth, he seems to be laying the groundwork already for Banquo to be Macbeth's foil, which I'll discuss in more detail later. The captain is taken away to have his wounds attended to, and the Thanes of Ross and Angus enter. They bring more news from Fife, where Norwegian banners flout the sky and fan our people cold, and where the Norwegian king, supported by terrible numbers of soldiers and assisted by that most disloyal traitor, the Thane of Cawdor, began a dismal conflict. What, however, looked like a dire situation was saved yet again by Macbeth. Once more praise is lavished upon him as he is described, this time in more elevated and hyperbolic terms as befits the higher status of the person speaking, using the metaphor Bellona's bridegroom. In other words, like the husband of the Roman goddess of war, who, lapped in proof or clad in strong armour, took on Spheno's armies on equal terms, point against point, rebellious arm against arm, until victory fell on us. It appears then that Macbeth can do no wrong. He has almost single-handedly defeated the Norwegian king, who is now craving composition or pleading for peace, having been forced to pay up $10,000 in compensation. Duncan orders the immediate execution of the traitorous Thane of Cawdor and, as a reward, orders Ross and Angus to, with his former title, greet Macbeth. In other words, Macbeth is to be the new Thane of Cawdor. The scene finishes with another reference to winning and losing, this time by Duncan. What he hath lost, noble Macbeth hath won, reminding us that winning and losing are irrevocably tied together. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments section below, and I'll do my best to answer them. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos on English language topics and exam techniques and English literature texts.